YouTube.
Okay, isn't that usual? Isn't that usual?
We have to give it to them.
Oh, yeah, but that's how we...
Unless they know to go to YouTube and search for our page. Do you have the streaming server up right now to hear if the show is on, if there's a show on?
No, I don't have it. I don't have it loud. I mean, I don't have it orally, no. Audible.
I'll turn it on. I've got a different browser running for that.
Nightclub shooting. And so we want to talk to somebody about that project. Brandon Parsons is a musician who wrote and performed a song 49 times for the Pulse Remembrance. And if you want to get ahead of us, go to YouTube and type in 49 times. It's amazing. Amazing.
Okay, this is my thing. Okay, what? Oh, I need the...
Of June or so.
I need a different screen here.
And Emily Sigrist, who we interviewed.
Or I'm not going to be able to... Pages need to get out of there.
We're out of our time.
I need...
Linda, we're going to be starting.
Okay, can you start it? I'm sorry, I can't find this.
For my wife, Becca, for Mandy, Thank you for tuning in today on Pride 48. This has been Sarah Talk.
Sarah Talk is made possible by listener support. Visit patreon.com/Sarah Talk to become a patron and help keep this program going. Contact Sarah and Company by email at producer@sarahtalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. And follow us on social media, facebook.com/Sarah Talk Radio and on Twitter @Sarah Talk Radio. Sarah Talk is a production of Sarah Austin Media.
Hello, Pride 48. This is DJ Star Sage, and we're just logging on to the stream here. We'll be getting underway momentarily. Just need to check in with you guys and make sure that you can hear us. Okay, so it sounds like we're being heard. Chubbs Matt says hi. And will you be ready momentarily, Duchess?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so we're just going to be a couple minutes, folks, while we get the curtain behind us pulled. So talk amongst yourselves. I hope everybody is enjoying themselves this weekend with our marathon of live shows. And I will just read the roll call here. So it looks like, of course, we've got Adam Burns, we've got Big Patty, Chubbs Matt. I'm not sure who Fake Orgasm is. We've got Greg, we've got Sarah Talk and Christian, Ricky Burton, and of course the lovely Duchess Sue, Veritable Virgo, yes, Mama too, and then a few folks that are idling. So we'll see if they're actually still there. We've got Joe Patance, Princess Hannah, RT Cruiser. I'm just skipping around here. That Blue Jeans guy, Peter G. So let's see. It says, yes, Big Fatty, our realist stream wasn't very reliable, ironically. I think I need another sip of my drink here. This is a non-alcoholic beverage, but I'm slightly parched. I have my windows open.
Okay.
Zombie Girl TJ says hello. Hello, TJ. I hope you are enjoying yourself today and all ready for your show right after. I hope we don't leave too much of a mess on the floor for you to pick up. So let's see. So I am just going to go into the notes here because regardless of whether what I put in there is still there, I have another copy. So do you have your tribute that you were writing?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I do, or something.
Folks, we also have live video over on our YouTube channel. So if you would like to enjoy that, just go to YouTube and search The Faraway Nearby. And this will be episode 28 live in progress. So Duchess, just let me know when you think we should be able to get underway. We're almost, well, we're 3 minutes in.
I think we can go ahead now.
Alrighty, so, ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, aliens of all kinds, here we go. Just out of reach. Let me start that again. Here, I gotta turn up my volume.
There's a place just out of reach where we go to escape an enchanted land.
Okay.
Out and far away, nearby, can you hear my call? Out and far away, nearby, looking down the wall, still you're here to stay. Out and far away.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Duchess Sue. Hello, Sue. How are you today?
Hi, DJ. I'm doing pretty good.
How is the weather in your neck of the woods?
It's sunny and hot.
Yeah?
A little muggy.
Have you been out today yet?
No, I haven't. I'm hiding from the heat.
Do you have your servants traveling around you with the umbrellas today?
If I go out, they will. I have my servants out getting refreshments.
We just returned from some errands and out here in not quite Apple Country. I think we're about in the 80s. It's actually quite a nice day out. It's a day that reminds me of when I was little. It's a little overcast out, and there's a nice breeze going. It reminds me when my grandparents used to have this great property that was next door to a farmer's field.
Mm.
And I think I've mentioned before, my grandmother was very fortunate because she grew up on a farm, and at that particular house, the farmer let her have the last few rows of his field to plant her own garden. So she had quite the production going there. So, folks, this is our 28th episode, and we wanted to welcome you to the Pride48 June Streaming Weekend. And, of course, it is also Pride Month in many states in this country. Now, in my part of Western New York, for some reason, we've chosen to have our Pride in July. It's a bit toastier then, but then again, Western New York weather is not always, shall I say, predictable. You know, who believes in global warming anyway? So, this is where the Duchess and I get together for our pot of tea, and we catch up with each other, find out what's going on in each other's lives. And, of course, Duchess, do you have your notes together for what you wanted to talk about?
Well, yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about my last couple weeks, but I have a little bit. We my granddaughter and I, Chloe and I, are starting a YouTube channel. We're calling it Bits and Bobs, and it will be debuting on July 5th.
Oh.
And we would invite all of you to come and laugh at us.
Or with, as the case may be.
Well, yes, that too. One day I was watching, my granddaughter turned me on to YouTube. I hadn't paid much attention to it until then. But, and I was sitting watching it one day, and there were these, and it just, you know, after whatever I was watching got over, it started pulling up other things. And it was showing me these women who had been to a store named the Dollar Tree, which is a cheap store. I've been in there a number of times to get little bits and bobs. And these women were holding up stuff and saying, I got this, and this is just really fantastic. And I'm going, I can do this. And I went over to my kid's house and I said, let's do a YouTube channel. And Mama Bear's been harassing her girls about doing that for some time. And they have always said, no, we aren't interested in that. So but when I went over and said that to Chloe, she said, sure, let's do it. And so we've been working on that, and we are ready to debut this now. So we'd like all of you to join us. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks. How about you, DJ?
Well, there's a few things that have been going on. Now, the chat room said that the volume was low. I'm hoping that I just fixed it. But I'm hearing you, and at least we know that they're hearing you, so we'll see if that fixes it. But, you know, as far as the world of DJ Starsage, let me see here. I've got a few notes. Okay, well, the latest update on my dieting progress is I am currently down by 60 pounds.
Wow.
So that is counting the holiday season. I was at my peak. And for those of you who may be new to our show, during the holiday season, both my husband Billy and I came to some realizations about our own health because he works in retail and has a very stressful job. And he was having to see the doctor within a year or so of having had his appendix out. So we both took long looks at our health. And of course, nowadays you can log in and look at your patient records that includes all of your test results with your doctor. And, well, not necessarily unbeknownst to me, but maybe not, I was not fully aware, but Billy logs in and he sees my doctor has it down that I'm at risk for heart disease if I don't start behaving myself. You know, this was 6 months or so more ago, but we decided to go down a path of a better health from there. And as I've reported on and off on this show, you know, we continue our efforts where we'll have a cheat meal on the weekend. And in fact, just this afternoon, we went out and ran errands before we came home to do the show. And it was running a little short on time. So for lunch, we had ice cream. But I'm not running a product endorsement, but this particular ice cream, unlike others, is lower in calories and fat, and it actually has a high amount of protein in it. So I'm not going to say the name, but it's like what an angel has over their head, plus the So it's a West Coast dairy, so it may be available in a lot of places, but the idea is on the can, or the carton, it says the calorie count for the entire pint, not just a few spoonfuls. Anyways, so I'm down to 60 pounds, or I'm down by 60 pounds. I'm not down to 60 pounds.
That would be terrible. That would not be healthy, DJ.
No, but I'm down by 60 pounds, and we're going through our wardrobes to get rid of our older sizes and to donate those things. And let's see here. I've got a few other notes to myself. Recently at the candy shop where I work, we had a potluck. Now, this is a workplace activity that many of you may be familiar with. Just, you know, it's like whenever you're bored at work, they decide to do something for morale or lack thereof, and quite often it involves a quote-unquote food day. Well, we decided that because every other culture and month that has a dedication for that month has a activity, why not have a Pride potluck? And so to sell it to some of our more conservative staff members, we decided that we were going to bundle it under the banner of diversity. So we sent out an email which included a nice little lesson in history about Stonewall, and we organized this potluck. And basically, you could bring in dishes from any sort of culture, but the idea was that you're supposed to bring in something colorful to celebrate diversity. My only disappointment in the turnout for this was a close coworker of mine who is gay, and one of the only gay people that I'm friends with at work, or at least it's one of those situations where you don't know how many other gay people there are, but you know who your brothers and sisters are, so to speak. So you talk in the break room, and this poor guy had done some of the planning for the activity. He was even going to bring in balloons and streamers, and he was in a recent car accident. Now, he himself is fine. It didn't impact his health whatsoever, but I'm sure that his poor convertible has taken some of the brunt of the damage. And he had to take off the day to sort things out because he's not even able to get a rental car at this point because his insurance company is unsure who's at fault.
Oh.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
it was an okay turnout. My department has 2 positions in it, so we don't always get the participation of the greater section. That was disappointing, but it was fun overall. Let's see, what else? It's the warm time of the year, so we're hoping to do a few fun things, Billy and I. We are coming up on our 6-year wedding anniversary in August, so we're hoping to maybe go on a little trip for that. Now, I'm not talking anything big, like, we're not going to be going to San Francisco or Seattle or anything, just somewhere in our backyard. I'm hoping to go to Niagara Falls, where we might have a nice little long weekend possibly. So that dove was a signal that we're about 15 minutes in. The only thing I would have to say, aside from the weight loss, the potluck at work, and the travel plans for this summer, I am hoping to dip my toes in the water of another realm of gaming soon. I'm hoping to get a PlayStation 4 by this fall. And, of course, that's so that I can play Star Trek Online now that that's a free download on that platform. And we're going to be cutting the cord this fall. We're going to be getting rid of our subscription TV service since my contract will be up then. And, see how we can cut corners and save some money. But anyways, that's the latest here. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Or actually, let me take a moment because we're not quite even halfway through. So you mentioned that you're going to be doing a YouTube channel with your granddaughter. And a while ago, you mentioned that the Duke has started his new job.
Yes.
You don't have to go into too much detail on that, but how are things going there if you'd like to say anything?
They seem to be going okay. He is working in a company with our daughter and one of the other granddaughter. So they tend to be somewhat. They like to hire family members for some reason. So it took him several years after we moved from Denver to find a job, a full-time permanent job here in town. But when he quit the job at the Gas and Rob, he I'm sorry, like one of my professors, a criminal justice professor, tended to call those little shops that sold gasoline and a few odds and ends of food and beverages, a Gas and Rob, and it just seems to appropriate it. But the Duke quit his job at the Gas and Rob. He couldn't take it any longer. He's been there like 3 years or something.
Okay.
And it was killing his back. And and he wasn't even unemployed a month before he had another job. So, and that seems to be going well.
And so this new position that he has, and I think we decided that he works with the bean counters.
Yes.
And so this offers its fair share of benefits.
Yeah, it's a large company, sort of like the company we work for in Denver.
Okay.
However, it does similar kinds of work, actually.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
For various companies. So
right, and so the Duchess is well, actually, I'm trying to figure out how to say this eloquently. The Duchess is no longer required to be in the workforce.
This is true.
She is a liberated person. But her husband isn't too many years behind her on that journey, so hopefully this is something that will last until that time is a decision point. Wouldn't you say?
He has about 3 years to
Okay.
go.
Gotcha.
So yeah, he should be able to hold on to this job for that long.
Wonderful. It's always nice when you don't have to get used to new things.
And it's much less stressful on his back and what have you. So
that's certainly a welcome thing.
This is true.
So let's see. In the chat room, Chubb's Matt is eating a cupcake. And yes, Mama Do said that we have a dove train to coo at 15 minutes in. It's true. You should see the trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Auntie Vera is in the chat room with us. So welcome, Auntie. And Chubbs Matt asks how the kitties are. So Shay Star Sage, or maybe I should call it Chateau Star Sage, is home to 3 little fur babies, and I know some people hate when the words fur babies are used, but you don't get to sit in my tea party and not
and complain.
Yeah, and complain. There we go.
These are of the feline variety, are they not?
They are, yes. So we have Oliver, who's the oldest male. He's in orange and white, and he takes care of our 2 dwarf cats, which are females. And they are Nala, who is a calico, and then Goldie is a tortoiseshell. And so Nala is drama queen, and Goldie is the little show pony, I guess you'd say. She loves to lay on her back and nap. A year or so ago, when we got our first memory foam mattress, we weren't sure how the cats were going to react to it. And Goldie was the first to try it out. She came up on the bed, and she had this weird look on her face, like, did I step in gum? She's like, she picks up her paws like she's going to claw it and scratch it and whatever. But she's feeling how it is on her paws. And this looks on her face like, oh, I kind of like this. So she was the first to try out the memory foam mattress. And she's, of course, also the one who stays on it most of the day when we're at work. And in the morning when you wake up, she lays there. And, of course, anyone who's had a tortoiseshell will tell you that they have an attitude about them that's called tortitude. And there's lots of kind of attitude meowing, and when she's laying on her side and you go to rub her belly, she will act like she's waking up from a nap, and we call that her little drunk girl. So we are not quite halfway in. I guess once we've reached halfway in, we can move on to our tributes. But
yes, we could.
But just to fill things in a little bit here, for those of you who are enjoying our video on YouTube, I am wearing a special shirt to celebrate Pride. Now, Duchess, you may see this, and I don't know if you
Yes.
saw it when we were in day-to-day contact, but this is a shirt that I got while living in Denver. It's Pride Fest 2004, and it has the skyline of downtown Denver. Now, this shirt, this building in the middle is the Wells Fargo building, and depending on who you ask, they'll tell you it looks like one of two things. Some people will call it the mailbox building, but I've also heard it called the cash register building.
Yeah, I think that's more common, yeah.
Yeah, because of the way it looks like the old style cash register with the window with the numbers that popped up. So, so happy Pride. I'm not sure, it may actually be Pride weekend in Denver right now. But like I said, here in Not Quite Apple Country, our Pride isn't until July for some reason. Womp womp. But we are going to do some things today to recognize our gay and lesbian community. In a few moments, the Duchess and I are going to pay tribute to important persons in our lives that were of the gay or lesbian persuasion. So we'll give this a few minutes to catch up before we actually enter that segment. The Duchess is on a new computer, if she didn't say that already.
I don't think I did.
No. We had a fun little session last night because I just thought to myself, oh no, she's got a new computer, and we're going to have to work out all the the bells and whistles and everything. And luckily the Duke was home, so she didn't have to smack it around much too hard before I was able to see her shining face.
It's true, but I like always had a few problems getting everything loaded and up and ready to go today.
Well, that's what we get for trying to do things on the helps day off. So.
Yes, well, I am a little technically challenged from time to time, and so as with it, I'm challenged with many things.
Mm-hmm.
But technology is one of those things that I sort of understand, but not quite.
Well, since we're going to give the lovely folks at the Brain Dead podcast a minute or two at the end here so they can get crossed over or what have you, I think it would be safe to go ahead and start our tributes here.
I think so.
So, Duchess, since I'm hosting today, I figured it would be all right for you to go first. So would you like for me to play the musical portion first?
Sure, you could do that. That would be good, I think.
Okay, so the Duchess and I, in our planning for today's special for the June Streaming Weekend, decided to think about people in our lives of the gay and lesbian persuasion who were influential in our lives. And these are people that we have memories of who held important roles in our growing up. And in thinking about those people, some music came to mind. Now, Duchess, would you like to briefly explain what we're about to hear?
I don't know that it's explainable exactly. The music is by a group called King Crimson, and they were very popular around that time, and it's one of my favorite albums.
Okay, so we're going to play just a few seconds of this song, and we might actually talk over it just so we are within our P's and Q's here. It's just going to be a few seconds of this song, The Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. And this is from the late 60s, I do believe you mentioned, right, Duchess?
Yes, I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it was around at that time, and well, you didn't hear it on the radio unless you listened to special radio stations, but any kind of underground stations, they were not. Most radio stations didn't play this kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It would have been more like a college radio.
yeah, college radio stations, or well, actually, independent radio stations that catered to college kids and other young people of the time.
Now, was this music that was popular at the time you came to know your friend?
Yes, yeah. This was this was dope smoker music.
So,
And this was for the what we called freaks of the time.
mhm.
I'm not sure if that still has to do with people that sort of live on the edge of society, but these were the people that were trying to eat healthy, and they still are. They because they're the people that are kind of behind the green movement and the eat local, eat healthy, eat fresh kinds of things.
So for Coloradans, these would be the types that would be like living in Boulder.
Yeah, that might be the types living in Boulder, although I have heard some of the people that don't live in Colorado refer to the people that live in Boulder as sort of a Nazi community.
Oh, that's
because they have so many laws and so many restrictions about what you can do in your house, in your car, on the streets, in that Boulder is a non-smoking city.
Uh-huh.
And I believe, I'm not entirely certain about that. I'm sure that if I say this is true, somebody's going to write and correct us, but it has been rumored that Boulder does not allow you to smoke in your house or in your car, that this is an offense, and that's why I call it a non-smoking city. I don't know if that's true, especially since the legalization of marijuana in the state.
Oh.
But it, of course, is one of the few states that have legalized marijuana, which is a kind of tricky thing because it's still not legal. It's a controlled substance in the nation.
The eagle signifies that we're halfway through. So go ahead, Dutch.
Oh, okay. So but that's and that's why I say that Boulder is something of a Boulder's a special place. It's hard to talk about.
College town, among other things, but yeah,
it's a college town, and it's considered a very liberal town. They would have been one of the first cities to have declared that they were continuing as a sanctuary city. They would have been one of the like I say, they were one of the first cities to start outlawing smoking indoors, or smoking in restaurants and stuff. But they have taken some of that to an extreme.
Right. So you had a very special person in your life that you wanted to take a few moments to talk about.
It's true. When I was, I don't know, in my mid-20s, I worked at a mental hospital in the state of Nebraska, and a fellow employee named Joe, who I always called JoJo for some reason, or frequently called JoJo for some reason, and I worked together. Now, I met him about 2 years into my employment there. I worked there for 5 years, and I think he worked there somewhat less. He quit before I did, and I followed him about 6 months later. And I wrote this up because I sometimes think about crying when I get kind of choked up when I think about JoJo. So I will just read this.
Okay.
If I can get it in a full screen mode here. Okay. I met JoJo while working at the main campus of the State Mental Institute Hospital. And just a second here. I don't know what this is. This new computer is not working like I want
That's
it to. Okay.
That was
Okay. Let's see if I can read it over here. Okay, this looks much more hopeful. Let's see. I met JoJo while working at the main campus of the state mental hospital. I met the doctor while working as a waitress about 5 years earlier. Joe and I worked the night shift, showing up at 11 o'clock sharp and leaving promptly at 7 a.m. Mostly it was a boring shift and left plenty of time to read or study, and there were many a night when we told life stories to pass the time. Joe and I were both university students, a bit out of stride with the other employees. So we managed to spend a lot of time together, assigned to the same wards, etc. One night I mentioned that I had waited tables during high school at one of the hopefully but not really upscale restaurants. Upon hearing this, JoJo curiously asked if I had ever met the doctor. You couldn't have worked there without knowing the doctor and his gaggle of beautiful boys. I mean, beautiful. Looking at Joe, I knew he must have been one of them. The doctor and his boys would come in a couple of times a month, and someone was taken off other chores and assigned to take care of the doctor and his boys explicitly. Okay, I lost my place here. Okay. Joe and I talked about this for a while, and then he was forgotten books and other things. I guess Joe and I were friends. He gave me rides to work when my motorcycle, just a second here, when my motorcycle was out of commission or it was too snowy to ride. The hospital was about 5 miles out of town. We worked on a couple of local political campaigns together. We were both in the local AFSCME union, that's the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, if anyone is curious. About 6 months after being elected president of the union, of the local labor union, Joe decided to quit both the presidency and the mental hospital. And wonderful mental hospital. And wonderful young man that he was, he stuck me with the presidency of the union. No one else wanted it, neither did I. After a few months at the position, I didn't want it either. And after 5 years at the hospital, I wanted out as well. I resigned the presidency, and a month later, the job. JoJo and I continued to see each other around campus for the next year or so. We'd talk for a while and continue on our way. We hadn't been close personal friends so much, so I didn't think much of it, but people you work with and folks you see around campus tend to slip away without really noticing. A few years later, a friend told me that JoJo had passed away. I was a bit confused. He was young and healthy. Short of being mugged in the big city or killed in an automobile accident, this was impossible or improbable. It was the gay disease, I was told. It had not only taken JoJo, but it had taken the doctor and most of the young men that he had nurtured through the years. A picture of the doctor and his cheerful young men flashed before my eyes in a quite dramatic fashion, ending with a picture of JoJo in full winter clothing, scraping the snow off the ice of his little Volkswagen Rabbit after telling me not to breathe too much as I waited in the car. I still miss JoJo, and probably always will. I've been closer to many people, and I've worked with, but no one has touched me more than JoJo.
You worked together, when was this, in the early 80s?
This would have been the late 70s, early 80s, maybe the mid 80s. I could look it up. I don't remember exactly.
Mhm.
But he had quite an impact on my life and my understanding about people. I don't think he was the first gay person I ever met. And he probably wouldn't be and obviously he's not the last, but he had for someone that I just worked with and that slipped away from my knowing what happened to him so easily. He had a really strong impact upon me.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long would you say between when you both left that job until you were told that he had passed on?
Oh, 5, maybe 10 years.
Oh, so it was completely by surprise because you weren't running into him anymore, even.
Yeah, we're both no longer doing anything at all the same. He had finished college and gone somewhere. It just never dawned on us that we needed to keep in touch. We would probably run into each other somewhere again.
So you traveled in different circles, basically.
We traveled in quite different circles. He was, in the parlance of the day, he was much straighter, and you may think that's funny because he was gay, but in the terminology that my friends and I used, straight people were anyone who wasn't like a hippie kind of person. And JoJo certainly was not in that mode. You couldn't tell him amongst the professional people downtown.
Mm-hmm.
He always dressed like, his casual dress was a button-down shirt and maybe with the sleeves rolled up.
The Duchess and I were discussing this just last night in our warm-up session. So, she was saying that this is at one of her early jobs. So this was in the beginnings of the AIDS crisis. Now, I realize that a fair number of you in the chat room probably aren't of the millennial era, but as we are so far from the beginning of the epidemic, it's easy to lose focus and realize that at one point in time, this was a much scarier disease than it is. I mean, now, of course, we have the luxury that with proper insurance and medication, if you take care of yourself, it's no longer a death sentence. But at the time that the Duchess knew this man that she worked with, who, by the way, was close to her own age, we had no idea what was in store.
Well, yeah, it had a number of different names, but in the United States, because it had impacted the gay population most strongly, it sort of became euphemistic to call it the gay disease.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it had a term, when they isolated the HIV, whatever the germs, the chromosomes, whatever it is. I'm sorry, I don't know a lot about HIV, but it certainly, it wasn't known as AIDS, and it was a while before it became HIV became a common term in reference to it, and it was just sort of connected to gay people, and this was another one of the reasons that people here in the Midwest thought that gay people were evil.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the political campaigns that Joe and I had worked on was a campaign to outlaw, I guess, to make illegal discriminating against people because of their sexual orientation in housing, and it did not pass.
Mhm.
And this is in perhaps the most liberal city in Nebraska.
Mhm. Now, last night when the Duchess and I were rehearsing, we also talked about some of the more current events happening that affected the HIV and AIDS community. Now, did you want to mention the topic that I brought up last night, Duchess, or did you want me to go ahead and present that?
I think you should go ahead and
Okay.
talk
Well,
about that.
and apologies, I'm not going to get the name correct. So for those of you powered by the interwebs for the moment, feel free to look this up. But there has been in the past a presidential committee that was essentially an authority on HIV and AIDS, and they were advisors, I do believe, in the role of the cabinet. So since George W. Bush's administration and continuing on through the Obama administration, there was a presidential committee on HIV/AIDS. Now, given that we have a conservative president in office now, it's abundantly clear how the GOP feels about the gay and lesbian community. And so, of course, the support for our causes is dwindling in Congress and Senate. So this committee took it upon themselves to voice their concerns over lack of support, and they basically dissolved themselves. Each one of them in that group resigned. And in awareness of this, television host of the Late Late Show, James Corden, decided that he was going to have his staff round up as many copies of the 80s Tom Hanks film, Philadelphia, and have them sent to President Trump's Florida hotel. So there were 200 some copies that were being sent, and of course, the story that I read had people wondering if there was a significance to the number of copies, and the answer was no, that was just the number of copies we were able to round up. But they did finish the statement about sending them by saying, where we could, we spent the extra money so the president could enjoy it on Blu-ray.
Yes, well, as I told you last night, I'm sure that there were a number of employees at the Florida hotel that were pleased to get their own personal copy of the Philadelphia story.
I'm sure, and it would have been nice if we could have gotten Tom Hanks to autograph some of those, but maybe he'll make a visit. I don't know. I'm just going to plug in. Okay, so the thunderstorm was the alert that we are 15 minutes from the end, and we're going to give Brain Dead a couple minutes before that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to my tribute. So just like the Duchess, I had someone in the gay and lesbian community that was influential in my life. Now, in my case, I was much younger, and just as with the Duchess, I have a musical tribute. It's a little shorter, but it's apropos because this would have been time this woman was in her wild youth. So I'll go ahead and play this clip for you. So this is Dinah Shore. She's singing Faraway Places.
Far away over the sea.
So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my little document here. Let's see. So the lady that I'm going to be speaking about is somebody was a neighbor to me, and bring up my notes here. Not on that device. I have other access here. Let's see. Of course, it wants to tell me to sign out of something and go into something else. Let's see. Okay, nope, that's not it either. And bear with me, folks. Technical difficulties here. Let's see, I have this somewhere. Okay, yes, here it is. When I was but a boy, my folks moved to be closer to my mom's job. Coincidentally, we built a house in the vacant lot across the street from her boss. She came from my father's hometown, which was a delightful mystery to me, as I'd never spent much time there as a child. Jean was a kind lady. She always had her sunglasses on, had a cigarette in hand, and a can of Coors nearby. She had an infectious laugh and was often on her way to or from the golf course with her sun visor on. If Mom and Dad weren't concerned their youngest would turn out gay from spending so much time with a stay-at-home father, surely moving us next door to a militant lesbian was basically a layaway plan for my gaydom. I should explain that the neighbor was an ex-Navy nurse. Jean's yard was always immaculate. When not practicing her swing, she'd be seen out mowing it. And most importantly, she was generous with her mother's company, an older, sweet lady that I kept her time frequently on afternoons and weekends. Little did I know that before becoming my mother's boss, she'd had a celebrated life of service. By the age of 21, Jean had joined the Navy and had left New York to be stationed in Alameda, California. So that song that I just played by Dinah Shore would have been popular when Jean would have just joined the service in her early 20s. So she had a wild and adventurous life from early on, I can imagine. I mean, growing up from a rural part of the country, you know, when it's your time to face the music, so many young people decide they want to go to the big city, and she decided to not only go to the big city, but to also serve our country. So I salute Jean, and I have the pleasure of knowing that she is buried in the cemetery with my father's family. As some of you may know, I've gotten into the research and history and genealogy of my family, and when I went to go visit the graves for my great-grandparents, the grave for my elderly neighbor, the mother that I was speaking of, that I used to visit a lot when I was little, is in that same cemetery, and she's buried with her daughter, Jean, that I just spoke of. So, so here is to all of the wonderful gay and lesbian people who have modeled and shaped our futures. So we have a few minutes to round things out. Duchess, you and I were going to briefly talk about, because last weekend was Father's Day, we were going to talk about some memories of our dads, and then when just before we hand off to the Brain Dead podcast, we'll give a little teaser of who our next show will be. So, did you want to start things off and share a few fun memories of Dad?
Well, yeah, my father was a plastering contractor. He developed emphysema when I was a small child, like 3-4 years old. And by the time I was in the 4th grade, he had to quit work. He died when I was 13 years old. And there is not a day in my life that since then that I have not talked to him. He was, I suppose, my favorite parent. If you can have favorites between your parents, they were both quite beloved to me. They were great people. They were not rich people, and they were, in a sense, they were not successful in their lives. I grew up rather poor because of my father's illness and his inability to practice his profession for very long after I was born. And my mother was a teacher, and as we all know, teachers are not paid very well. And even then, it was hard when costs were much less than they are now. It was hard for teachers to raise a family on one salary. But my dad is a person that I always turn to when I have questions about what is right and wrong, or how to handle certain situations, despite the fact that he has been gone from my life for most of it. But he was a really good man. He liked to read the dictionary, which is probably why my brother read the encyclopedia when he was a small child. And Dad was always finding words that he didn't know that he would incorporate into his vocabulary. And of course, the rest of us needed to incorporate it into our vocabulary. He left school. I don't know if I said this, but he left school when he was in the 10th grade. And that would have been just before the Depression, I think.
Okay.
My parents are 42 years older than I am, so
you were surprised. You and I were saying last night, both you and I were surprises when we arrived.
It's true. I was not expected. I'm not sure I was necessarily wanted. And I was supposed to be a boy. But none of those things actually happened. I came along, and my parents loved me just as much as they loved any of the other kids. They were really nice people. They just were not very successful in living life.
Well, for what it's worth, I think there actually ended up being a John Wayne movie named A Boy Named Sue.
It's true, there is.
So we only have a few
I don't know if there's a movie named that. There's a song by Johnny Cash named that.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think that's what you're thinking. I don't think there's a John Wayne movie there.
We only have a few more minutes here, so I'm going to go ahead and talk a little about my dad now. So as the Duchess was saying, I am also a surprise. I was the youngest and last child. By the time I came along, Mom and Dad had decided it was a little too much to have two cars on the road, so Mom was the breadwinner, and they decided Dad would be the stay-at-home dad. So I spent my earlier years taking naps with my dad after watching PBS and Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, and having lunch consisted of an Archway sugar cookie for you East Coasters, this big sugar cookie the size of a sandwich plate, I swear, slathered with peanut butter. Now, my dad's would have butter on it as well, and I later learned that was something he learned from his grandmother, so something that passed on from my great-grandparents. But my father was a building contractor in the later years of his life, and he built several of the houses that we lived in. So we do literally have standing monuments to my dad's achievements, and one is something that my sister Ronnie has held on to because it's the last house that he built. But despite not having finished school, my dad dropped out to take care of his family because his parents divorced before all of the kids had finished school. My dad did pretty well for himself, and he made every effort to provide for his children everything that he never got. So while our household was semi-strict, I wouldn't say it was hardcore strict for somebody who was raised Catholic, we didn't get away with things, and we respected our parents. So we only have a moment to go here, so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know that our next episode is going to be a special session we're recording with Baron Frosty of Blind Time. So I'm sure that we'll be spending that episode talking about his writing and his adventures traveling. So, Duchess, do you have anything to say to the folks in the chat room before we get going?
Well, not particularly, but I hope you enjoyed our show. We enjoyed having you. And always appreciate you. And, I guess other than that, we just have to say goodbye because it's time to go.
And be sure to check out our Facebook group called the Treehouse in the Courtyard. If you join the Treehouse in the Courtyard, you'll get all the updates of the Faraway Nearby. And with that, we will say goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Faraway Nearby.
Visit our webpage at tfnpodcast.com.
Find our fan page on Facebook and our companion blog on Tumblr.
This show is available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher Radio.
Email us at tfnpodcast@gmail.com.
Follow us on Twitter at TFNDJ.
And call or text us at 720-230-6919. The show is a member of the Pride48 network.
Find other shows at pride48.com.
We're now releasing the stream, and next is the Brain Dead podcast with the lovely TJ and the talented Larry Queen. Okay, Duchess, so it is just you and I now.
Okay.
So we can hang out for a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, I have a few minutes to spare.
Okay, I'm gonna open my curtains again here. One sec.
That sounds like a reasonable thing to do. You're in the dark.
It was a lot hotter an hour ago.
Yeah, well, you need better lighting as well.
I have a light in front of me. I can turn that on right now.
Is that going to blind me? See, that's better. You look.
I can have it on when it's not as hot, but I don't have air conditioning, so.
Oh, that's right.
I would have to run a fan, which I found out the other week when we recorded with Toppy and Paul. I can have a fan running in this room, and it won't affect our sound quality.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So, you know what? I haven't stopped the YouTube broadcast.